Togashi has been experimenting with the concept of gender in his work since very early in his career, whether through characters that are physically androgynous, or characters that break gender stereotypes, or characters who are transgender. Togashi's most recent experimentation with gender led to the creation of the character Alluka, who has become a fan favorite and praised as a great representation of a transgender character. But when I first watched HunterXHunter, I honestly didn't really register that Alluka is transgender. When I heard discussions of Alluka's gender identity, I did more research into her character, and I've come to the conclusion that whether we can prove that Alluka is transgender or not is irrelevant. Alluka's story and themes surrounding her character are a great reflection of the transgender experience. So let's first start this video with why I didn't initially realize that Alluka is trans. Togashi's experimentations with gender might feel much more in your face for Western audiences than Japanese audiences, and this is due to the nature of Japanese language. Let's talk about Japanese pronouns. In English, we use I or me to refer to oneself. This is gender neutral and is used by everyone, from the lowliest peasant to the mightiest king. In Japanese, there are many different first-person pronouns. All of these are ways to refer to oneself and convey something about who you are and the situation you're in. In formal situations, you would use watashi, whether you're male or female. And in more casual situations, you might choose to use ore with your friends, but boku with your family. What pronouns you use in casual settings is all up to you. Some of these pronouns are more frequently used by men than women, but a woman using a more masculine pronoun wouldn't necessarily indicate that she has dysphoria or wants to be a man. It just means that she chose to use those pronouns for whatever reason. So in Japanese, using a particular pronoun isn't definitive proof of one's gender identity. When we first meet Karuto, who uses boku, a pronoun often used by young boys, I had assumed that Karuto was a girl but chose to use boku because she was constantly surrounded by her older brothers who would use masculine pronouns. I actually have a friend who has 3 older brothers who used to use boku when she was younger for this exact reason. Okay, but what about third-person pronouns? This is where English has a really clear divide of feminine and masculine pronouns, with he, him versus she, her, forcing those outside of the binary into an awkward situation. In Japanese, there are gendered third-person pronouns, which are kare and kanojo, but these are used in more formal circumstances. In a casual setting, pronouns you'd use might be anohito, anoko, aitsu, and all of these are gender non-specific pronouns. So, although in the English subs and dubs these characters are assigned as he, him, or she, her, in the original Japanese, the gender of the character really can't be identified through the pronouns. Therefore, those who view HunterXHunter in English get a constant reminder of a character's gender through their pronouns, but for a Japanese viewer, they don't receive this reinforcement. This, I think, is a bit unfortunate. For example, Kurapika's gender was ambiguous in the first few arcs of HunterXHunter, and this was possible in Japanese due to the fact that other characters could talk about Kurapika without having to use gendered pronouns, preserving that mystery for the viewers. Versus in English, there was no way around keeping Kurapika's gender ambiguous without making the dialogue seem unnatural. But anyways, okay, yeah, maybe the Japanese language means it's hard to identify somebody's gender through speech, but there are of course other ways to infer one's gender. For example, clothing. Alluka and Karuto both wear very feminine clothes. No man in Japan would ever wear a furisode. That's a very gender-specific outfit. And Alluka wears a dress inspired by a shrine maiden uniform, which again is a very feminine outfit. So from their personal fashion, we could maybe guess that these two identify as female. We can also deduce the gender of a character from how others treat them. For example, Karuto and Alluka are both referred by the family as sons and brothers, and they are called botchan by the butlers, and this is a way to refer to young boys. However, unlike everyone else in the family, Kirua calls Alluka his little sister, and this is the important part. Kirua, who has the closest bond to Alluka, the only member of the family who truly cares for her, explicitly states that Alluka is a girl. So although Alluka herself doesn't tell us her gender, I think this is proof that Alluka identifies as female. Okay, so Like, what about the sex of the character? Alluka is 11, so there aren't any physical indicators to make the audience realize that they are either anatomically male or female. So maybe she is biologically female, or maybe she's biologically male, or maybe intersex. We have no way of knowing. I am aware that there is an official data book where the sex of Karuto and Alluka are revealed as male, but for those who are just reading the manga and experiencing the story, there's no way to tell their sex. So with this information in mind, during my first viewing of HunterXHunter, I had assumed that Alluka and Karuto were biological females, and that the Zorodiku family had some strange tradition of referring to all their children as sons. In fact, we see something similar happen in the Succession War arc, where all of the children of the Kakin Emperor are referred to as princes, even though it seems there are both male and female children. But I think in the end, it doesn't really matter if Alluka was biologically born a male or female, because she clearly prefers to be referred to as a sister, not a brother. But her family is either purposefully ignoring this preference or is unaware of it. Alluka's personal journey and her relationship with her family is a reflection of how some trans youth are treated by their families and the struggle that they face in revealing their true selves. Alluka is the fourth child of the Zorodiku family, but from an early age was singled out and isolated from the rest due to the fact that Alluka shared a body with another being called Nanika. Feeling trapped in the wrong body is a phrase used by many trans people to describe their experience, and this can maybe be said about Nanika. Nanika is feared by the family, and her existence is kept a secret to those outside the family. The same way trans youth and queer youth might have to keep their gender or sexuality a secret by request from their families. And even Kirua, who has good intentions and loves his sister, tries to cure her by banishing Nanika so that Alluka can finally live a normal life. The same way trans and queer youth are often told to suppress or banish a part of themselves so that they can live a normal life. I think Alluka's struggle with identity and the struggle to have her identity be accepted by her family is very relatable to trans people. And I love that in the end, Nanika wasn't banished so that Alluka can be normal. Alluka stood up for Nanika, telling her brother that Nanika is a part of her and he needs to accept her if he truly loves Alluka. And oh my god, it makes me tear up to see Kirua apologize to Nanika, telling her that he really does love her and wants her to stick around. I think Kirua's relationship to Alluka in particular is very powerful, not only because he's the only ally she has in the family, but because even as an ally, Kirua isn't perfect, and he's still learning what it means to respect Alluka for who she is. And in turn, Kirua's relationship with Alluka influences him to love himself for who he is. I'm glad that I decided to think deeper about this character, because although in my first viewing I hadn't realized it, Alluka's character and her plot are even more powerful with the subtext that she is transgender. What do you guys think? I would love to know your thoughts.